This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of March, Mountain Glass is offering Northstar first quality borosilicate rods at 25% off. Just put in the code Northstar at checkout. That's NORTHSTAR. And for all you soft glass nerds, they're offering their soft glass COE 104 sale double helix rods at 15% off. Just put in the code DHELIX at checkout. That's DHELIX. And for any other questions or comments, please go to mountainglass.com. That is mountainglass.com.
Peace.
3, 2, 1. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 92. This is Jay Michael, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in today. With 17 years of experience behind the torch, I am as excited as always to bring you conversations with artists, sharing their stories in hopes to inspire and entertain while helping you grow your business. And today is no exception, as today is our Glass Knowledge segment with Shane Penn. You can find Shane on Instagram at Glass Knowledge, or also his personal glass page, which is at Infinite Alchemix. He is an electroformer, third-party kind of cat. He's also got some awesome work. Him and I have some collabs in the works, which I can't wait to show you guys. Really excited about. He does a lot of influential stuff from when he was over in Korea doing his teaching overseas, teaching English, and brought back this whole huge, fun inspiration from China and Korea and just the whole Asian influence, which really excited about his work. So can't wait to talk about that. Today we were discussing the controversy / topic, in a sense, of glass coming in from China and India versus the American-made and Canada-made even glass that's higher quality, but even the mass production glass, that's some of it's being made in this country with low standards as well. We get into this kind of topic and the ins and outs of why you shouldn't purchase it, how you can go about supporting the glass artists locally here, and what have you else. It's exciting stuff, and it was a fun conversation, and really got into it and got into some of the other things going on, talking about the cadmium issues right now that's going on. Some kind of covered a little bit here and there, and I definitely hope you guys enjoy that. And right now, I'm actually going to bring this up so to let you guys know that Mountain Glass is having their Get It Quick sale right now until the end of March 25th, 2016. Right now, they have their Get It Quick sale on Golden Gate Glassworks tubing. You can get that for 20% off. Just put in the word Golden Gate at checkout. That's Golden Gate, Golden Gate. Get 25% off. And then also for all you soft glass nerds out there, they have their Creations is Messy Rod sale going on right now. It is 30% off. Just put in the code MESSY. They got a bunch of new T-shirts in they've got going on. They've got some oxygen concentrate systems, different joints and what have you in. A lot of fun stuff, so definitely go check out mountainglass.com. And for all you that are getting started or buying stuff for classes you're teaching, if you need equipment and supplies and starter kits, you can just put in the code WISEGUY at checkout when you buy these starter kits, and then you can receive an additional 5% off your purchase. Just put in the term WISEGUY, WYZGUY, and that's all you got to do for 5% off. So other than that, it's time for us to get on with our segment of Glass Knowledge. I hope you guys enjoy, and we will be talking to you on the next episode number 92. Be bringing on a guest. His name is Chris Bach, scientific glass artist out of Delaware. I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. He is an awesome guy, toolmaker, lathe repairer, and glass artist extraordinaire. But today is time for Shane Penn and our Glass Knowledge segment. There you guys go. Enjoy. Love ya. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Wise Guy Radio. Also contact me, info@wiseguyradio.com. Peace.
Now it's time to share some glass knowledge with your host, Jay Michael, and the creator of @Glass Knowledge on Instagram, Shane Penn.
Hey, what's going on, Shane? How you doing, dude?
Doing great. How's it going, Jason?
Going well here, man. Thanks for coming back on. Excited to bring you here. We're going to be discussing A recent post you had that was slightly controversial on Instagram with all the community, which has been also a lot of fun. The grassroots glass versus import mass-produced glass. And we are all familiar with the quote-unquote import mass-produced, and we're not referring to glass coming out of like Australia or Canada necessarily. It's the crap that's being made in India and China that's coming in here and poisoning our communities.
And I think that's one of the big things that when we wrote that post that we were very sure about and very, very strict about, which is making sure that everyone understands that the glass that we are about to be discussing is we're talking about the grassroots art movement that is the glass blowers in the United States who are making these new innovative art pieces versus this more factory farmed Chinese imported and sometimes even made still in America glass. Like there are different factory glass blowers out there in the United States that blow very low quality pieces that are just as bad, if not the same practices that are used mainly overseas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. Well said.
Yeah, but for all those out there who are wondering what we're talking about as well on Glass Knowledge, if you're curious and want a more in-depth read, like check it out. We did a whole 8-post expose on it, just talking about the different, what's wrong with it, and what needs to be done or what can be done. And we tried to take in as much of a, I want to say non-biased standpoint, but we tried to approach the topic from a non-biased standpoint where we just tried to reveal the facts and try to tell what was happening, and you can make the decision. But realistically, a lot of those practices out there are to be frowned upon, and I don't agree with them, and I know you don't agree with them either.
Yeah, exactly. And now we can have a unbiased or biased, whichever. I'm going to give you my opinion on this.
I want your opinion. It's not a biased opinion. I mean, slightly, as you're part of the grassroots movement as well as I am, I guess you're coming from a certain side of it, but I don't know. There's not many counter arguments you can really give for it, to be honest.
Yeah, and also my perspective being in Florida and being an industry that is tourism-based where people fly by night, come in here, come out, stay for a week, 2 weeks maybe, and they want something cheap. So they've been going to the gas stations and convenience stores for the past however many years. And because of that, a lot of local communities have banned and outlawed and set, little local ordinances to stop that from happening. But then, like I hear recently, like our little Dollar General store down the road is selling pipes out of it now. So.
See, that is an environment I've never known. Like, I'm up in Minnesota for those who don't know, and up here you can't do that. You need to have a special store. You can't just be selling glass pipes out of a gas station, out of a corner store, out of anywhere. So that's really interesting that environment has even evolved down in Florida.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's like an economical type of thing as well with the locals, because I'm not saying everybody here has a shit ton of money. Not everybody's poor. There's the middle class wise, but we had the spice epidemic is still going on right now, and we had it really heavy. And I know from personal experiences and being around it that there were companies that were manufacturing this product that were then trading that's material for pipes or vice versa. So like, because a lot of the local convenience stores and food marts here are similar ethnic-based type people, not to sound like an asshole, but it's just how the facts are. They all are in these circles where they're all trading the spice for the import pipes or whatever, and they're all selling it for all super cheap. And then they're also all poisoning the local community who can't afford, or say you're on probation, so you can't necessarily smoke. They're selling the spice shit, but then they're making all this money, but then they're then buying more import glass. It's like this vicious cycle of just poisoning our areas and our community. Not to mention the fact that a lot of local smoke shops that were here that were going out of business because they couldn't compete with these import places. A lot of it's changed now, though.
And, I think that is a scene that's kind of, you can paint all around the country as well, as small stores are being overrun by other stores that are just holding mainly that imported glass. And I think for the listeners out there, one of the things that we're going to talk about right now is the only thing that this mass-produced imported industry has on the grassroots industry here in the United States is cost. Mm-hmm. They're cheap. And I think in the end of the day, especially when it comes to glass or even glassware, you get what you pay for. And that's really kind of where this conversation ultimately is going to end as well, is like any other industry, it is the consumer who decides what is viable and what's not viable. So if they're not going to buy it, then, we can't sell it. So that's one of the things, is that this entire conversation is about having, United States American consumers understand that it's going to cost a little bit more for American quality but that quality is supporting just a long list of better techniques, procedures, and everything in between.
Yeah, I agree. And what's kind of interesting too, it's like if you think about the dynamic of our industry versus say like fashion, where there's for years has been this knockoff crap that's imported stuff that's all counterfeit Pradas and Gucci's and what have you out there. And again, it's you get what you pay for. But a lot of times too, what makes I think us different from them is the quality product that we're creating and we're selling is about say 90% being made ethically by people that actually give a fuck. Where say like the high quality Pradas and Gucci's, their product lines, they're maybe probably still being made in sweatshops. Now the people that purchase that material and those items are very, I guess, conscious about what they're purchasing, making sure that that stuff isn't being made that way. But in all reality, they don't really know. With our industry, if you're buying directly from a shop, a lot of times the shops are educated, so they know who their glass is being made by. Or if you're getting something custom made or directly from an artist, you know it's coming from that artist who more than likely has their shit together and gives a fuck.
Absolutely. Like, it's also that personal experience you're going to have with a personal artist here, where if, you're talking to a person, like if you can ask, I've asked for this before when I've had pieces made, which is, like custom order, hit them up and ask for shots. Like, yo, can I get some shots like of my piece being made? I've seen like my piece that I'm about to like get in the mail in the torch. And that's like such a cool, honestly connection feeling too. And I think that's one of the big things that we can talk about is that when you order or when you buy from a glassblower here, you have that connection. It's a relationship. It's, just even talking to the artist. While when you're buying something from overseas or somewhere else, it's a complete lack of connection. There's a complete disconnect. And even if you're not buying directly from an artist here, you're buying from a store. If you're buying from a reputable store, they know who the artist is and they want you to know who it is. They want you to have that connection with that person too. So it's about building community. And I think I use that word a lot, but that's really what this is, we all are part of a collected community. Like, it's a small one at that, probably I'd say 50,000 blowers in the United States alone.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of curious myself. It seems like a large number, but I mean, nowadays you never know. It seems like there's probably a real number.
I think if you can count every single amateur artist, I'd say there's in between like 50 and 20,000.
Yeah.
And like within like the smoking community as well. So if you look at Instagram and like even like, the top of the top, like Salt and a few others. So I would say that United States alone, that the heady or like glass art industry is really only about I would say max 200,000 people, which in a scheme of 300 million people, 150 million adults is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But when it comes to how many people are partaking or would be interested in this glass if they were educated about it, I'd say that we could double, maybe even triple that number. And especially as different laws and things come into place, that number is only going to grow.
Yeah,
and I
agree.
think that's the big scare, is that as this industry begins to grow and blossom, and as honestly as the medical and like the recreational marijuana industry increases as well, that these things are going to go hand in hand, that we're going to see a huge boom in this. And it's going to come down to it is like, who's going to supply the United States, Canada, or wherever other third world nation that is legalizing these things? Who is going to supply the market with the glass? And is it going to be the cheap, like these cheap foreign companies that are making mass-produced products that are very similar to one another in design, but made low quality and made for very low amount of cash? Or is it going to be us? Yeah. And I think sadly in the long period, it's been, over every other industry, it's always them. And I think this is a really big chance and a really good time that, the United States and like everyone here can finally say this is a time for us.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it goes back to our conversation about kind of the age of where this community is. I mean, we're kind of like in our preteens, getting into our teens years, and it is fun to really pay attention because right now with the cadmium issues going on and some of that stuff, we're like I actually had Adrienne Ladd on today earlier. We were talking about the same thing. We're gonna be she's came back on to talk about her health and some of these issues. But it's the kind of fun irony, I guess if you'll call it, of how our industry is mostly put together of a bunch of hippies that really give a fuck, that care about the earth, that care about the environment. But then we're using these toxic chemicals that are potentially putting out off gases that are polluting the earth, And the glass that we use and the scraps, we can't recycle this stuff hardly. It's getting thrown in the garbage and it goes to the landfills and it's this weird irony that's in our industry. And I think as we continue to grow, third-party companies and industries are going to come in to help us out, become more conscious and become more effective with being, if recycling our stuff and keeping our shit together. Like Abe Fleischman with our North Star, he's right now trying to have a zero emissions factory made so that way they can continue producing this glass and anything down the road. And I think it's a big wake-up call also for the industry to understand that this shit is growing so fast, we can't rush it. We can't just make a product and push it out. We got to take our times, test it and study it, make sure it's healthy before we get it out,
I think your analogy of us being in our teens is pretty correct, but I'd say we're in our upper teens then. I feel like this is that whole, like, almost like that high school to college step. Like, suddenly you're a grown up. And I think the glass industry is right on the cusp of that.
Yeah, I agree.
You're grown up. Like, you do have to worry about emissions. You do have to worry about product safety. You're going to have to worry about legal issues, about how your product acts. And, like, you've had, what's the lawyer's name on?
Yeah, Luke Zimmerman.
Yeah, you've had Zimmerman, and, his concerns are very valid and are something that, are going to have to be considered in the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when we're talking about, like, the stuff coming out of India and China. It's like, you wonder at that point in time when, say, federal legalization happens, if they're going to crack down on the import coming overseas, or if then they're going to allow it to come in even more so because it's legal in a sense, even though maybe the importing from country to country maybe not be legal. It's going to be a weird, like, because the laws aren't set, who knows?
Well, they need to be cracked down to begin with. The reason that most of these foreign pipes and stuff are so cheap is because they evade tobacco taxes on the way in, tobacco import taxes, and that's by labeling.
Nope.
I've seen invoices where it just says glass tubes, glass tubes, glass tubes, glass tubes.
Yep.
And, it's like, oh, that was actually a pipe order for a store down the street. Like, wow. And that's a problem that, we can't really crack down on yet, but that does need to happen because that's the reason why they're able to undercut our prices so much is they don't pay their labor anything. They're working in very low labor intense conditions. The quality of the materials is low, so that brings down price. But then they're evading these high, I think it's like 90, 80% import taxes that you have to pay on tobacco products.
Yeah, and also with our whole, the foreign policies we have as well with China and whatever with the import taxes, it's just like they're talking about that now, like how such a big issue. And China's economy is taking a shit right now too on top of it all. So like how's that going to affect us in the long run? Maybe in the positive way, who knows?
I hope so.
But yeah, it's an interesting topic because like, it's... I understand that there is a demand for a low cost piece, but it doesn't need to be low quality, no matter what it is.
Absolutely, and like I was down at my local store today. I'm up in Duluth, Minnesota. For those who don't know, there's a place called Legacy Glassworks down here. It's a glass store. It's a glass gallery, but it's 100% USA blown glass. The owner's adamant about that, and for the most, like he only allows glass in his stores if he's met and handshaked the glass blower himself. That's his rule of thumb. He doesn't take in anything besides. He will make the exception with a few high-end names. Like he may not have met Snick, but that's reputable enough that you can bring in a Snick piece. But he has chillums as low as $12 from local artists, and it's helping our local community, and they're awesome. They're way better than any of the China pieces I've seen around, and like they're all like you can see the artist's strict style, even though it's just a chillum.
Mm-hmm.
And and we've talked about that before, that a good glass blower has something in everybody's price range.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because in the long run, making a pipe is pennies on the dollar. Oh, there you are. I lost you for a second. But the manufacturing cost, now the startup cost is where all your money's at. The manufacturing process is pennies on the dollar. I mean, really, I can make pipes for less than $1 in material cost if I wanted to.
But it's your time.
Right, exactly. And the 17 years I put into it, But
Absolutely.
For those that are just now starting, they should be the ones that are filling in the gap of that low-end product line. They should be the ones, like if you're 3 months in, 4 months in, a year in, you should still be making shit that you can sell for $5 or for $20 and not focus on getting into making higher-end rigs and what have you. I think if people, if the newer generation of artists were to look at as an entrepreneur to fill in that gap in the market, then everything would continue to flow instead of just jumping right into being a fucking heady maker or a rig maker or whatever. I think the evolution of their art would be better. The evolution of our industry would continue to go from generation to generation to generation. And then like they call them import killers or China killers. A lot of guys out there and girls in this industry have no problem making $5 spoons. It's the ones that are new that do have a problem with it are the ones that aren't going to survive.
That's true. And like everyone, you have to have something in everyone's price range. And
Yeah.
yeah, we've said that over and over again, can't iterate it enough. You don't if it's a pendant, if it's something, you need to have something that someone who can afford it $20 and something that someone can afford it $200 or higher.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
just
guess
good
let's kind of get into the topic of why the import China stuff is not healthy, and I'm not saying just China, because to back up on the China has an amazing community and industry and talent over there. Unfortunately, their government sucks, and they oppress their people, and they pay them shit labor, and they put them in conditions that they can't say yes or no to because they get thrown in jail and they disappear. So I'm not saying China's, fuck you, China. I'm just saying that the stuff that they're producing by the people that own these companies that don't give a fuck and they're just worried about the dollar is what our concern is. Because when we get this glass in, which we're going to get into now, is there's many reasons why we say don't buy this shit. So,
well, honestly, the reason is because it's shit. Think about it this way: the purpose of the pipe is to be smoked. It's to be used, correct?
mm-hmm.
That's the purpose and the function. It serves a function. And when something's function goes from being like clothing, where you're just wearing it, to something that you're inhaling into your body, there's a big difference on the safety and the protocol that needs to be there and the quality of that product. And so a lot of this imported glass, or for lack of better terms, but this mass quantity Chinese-made glass is low quality standards for health reasons. There's a lot of safety issues with it.
Yep.
And I think that's a good place we can start.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I guess, part of the process of the import from China and India is they'll send pieces that are not completely finished. Like they'll have a bowl just pushed in it and no carb in it. Or maybe they'll have a carb, but there's no hole in the bowl, so they can legally ship it over here and it's not considered a pipe because it's not functional. But then they get them here and it goes to somebody else who then takes a drill and then drills a hole into the bowl to then make it functional. And 9 times out of 10, they're not cleaning the shit out properly. And 2, that amount of stress that goes into the bowl itself, especially because the dish itself that's in the that you're putting your material into, that's the most used part of the whole pipe. Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. And if you have a drilled hole in there that isn't done properly, for one, and just the process of doing it causes a shit ton of stress in the glass, which is probably going to crack on you. And it doesn't already have micro fractures already going through the entire piece as it is, that you just can't see.
So for those who are listening and don't know, when you blow a piece, you naturally, while the glass is still hot, pop the holes in it so that it naturally carbs. It has a natural bowl that is in liquid form. And then when you put it into the kiln, it anneals it back down to stability. So it's a perfect whole piece of glass. There's not been a drill. There's not been any stress on it. So that creates your bowls, the push-in part, that creates a much stronger, much more durable piece. While if you look at a glass bowl or any piece of glass, if you were to take even a diamond drill and drill a hole in it, if you look at it close up through a microscope, it creates what's called microfractures. You know this. Mm-hmm. And those microfractures from too much heating, from expanding and whatnot, will grow and will eventually lead to the fracture of your piece. And yeah, that might not be from your first time you drop like anything, but it might be the first time you drop the piece. Is just because those fractures are present. Any vibration that is sent through the glass will instantly, break it apart.
Yeah, not to mention that you're sitting there one day and after you do your thing, and all of a sudden your pipe cracks just sitting there because it's cooling down, and it's got cracks in it, and it's all stressed out.
Yep. And
then if it's been drilled and not cleaned out properly, if you go to use it for the first time and you don't rinse your shit out, then you're going to be inhaling all this glass dust, which is terrible for you and can lead down the road to silicosis and other issues that you're going to have.
Mm-hmm. So the reason glass dust is bad for me, from what I understand of it, it gets into your lungs and it can't be processed by your body. So it cuts up your inside lung tissue, causing scarring to develop, which can shorten breath later in life, but also can cause even internal bleeding in extreme cases. So it's something to really be aware of. And for those out there, always wash your piece out before using them. Honestly, with anybody, I wash out every piece, be it American made, be it foreign. I just, always make sure.
Yep. I know myself, I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I've sent orders out that I forgot to rinse out because I try to rinse out everything I make.
And I think while we're talking about techniques that are used overseas, I think one of the big things too is that in a lot of these factories, they're not using glass equipment to work with glass. A lot of like the Chinese companies, they use cheaper concrete construction tools and lathes and things that aren't meant for glass to create these products, and that causes unnecessary stressors and different problems with the glass as well.
Yep, absolutely.
The one of the main things I've noticed with like these mass imports are welds, like welding of different parts together. I can't tell you how many tubes I've seen, like long, like flowing, like tubes of multiple perks where they just literally boop pop right off from right where the perk and everything was sealed together because it was just the weld was done not properly or just it's too thin or whatever. Like it doesn't matter the reason. A tube should never come apart in your hands.
Yeah, exactly. Or like the knockoff cups that are coming out. You know, the Dabbuccino cups and stuff, and the straws are just popping off, or the joints are just popping off, or, you know, it's silly. It's just, it's shit quality. And when you're dealing with welds and stuff, they have to be cleaned up. They have to be put together, and then they have to be heated up and blown out and constricted and cleaned up so that the glass becomes one with itself instead of just being two pieces squished together.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, as we look at this industry, too, it makes sense, like, why these products coming from overseas, especially China, anything coming from China, why it doesn't function the greatest. And the reason is simple. They're not a big smoking, like, there's not a huge smoking industry there. There's not people buying it. These aren't blowers who are buying it and using their products. They don't know the function of them. They just know they make it and they send it overseas. Mm-hmm. So they never see that, you know, there's no testing, there's no innovation in the market overseas. It's a copycat industry. And I think that's really, you know, that's the problem right there, is that there's no innovation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the reasons for the longest time, besides legality reasons, but that I wouldn't post my shit out there just because I didn't want to, you know, necessarily have someone see my shit and copy it, you know. But then you have people that are now coming into the trade shows and that are checking out stuff in person and taking pictures or buying samples, and you don't know if this guy's going to go to India with it and then have it mass produced over there.
You know, it's not even that. Honestly, I've heard throughout, you know, the last, like, whatever, 10, 15 years, I've heard, like, there's always been stories of blowers who, you know, will sell out the trade. We'll talk to a Chinese company and we'll go over there and, like, they'll just take their knowledge and they'll sell it to them, like, $50,000 and I'll teach all your blower, like, I'll teach you what to do. Mm-hmm. And it's like these Chinese-run shops that are then it's just hearsay. Then they just have one person show them how it's done. And, you know, there's a lot of controversy with, you know, a few different companies out there right now with how their glass shows up in Chinese markets like next week, you know, and I don't want to say any names out there right now. But,
yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think everyone listening knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that's the shitty part, is that it's kind of like no one wants to talk about this, but it's true. It's, you know, and I've also heard stories about, like, you know, some of, like, the more predominant suppliers in this industry, like, the way they even got their start was selling out the American public. And that sucks.
Yep. That's why I deal with Mountain Glass. And if you guys want good deals, go to mountainglass.com.
Glass, they treat you well?
Yeah, they're our flagship sponsor for the show. Mountain Glass is the shit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good. They'll treat you right. They'll give you the good stuff. That's what I like to hear.
Yep. Yeah, they're all about supporting the American.
But I want to talk about the idea of innovation more, just because I think that's something that a lot of, like, people in the glass industry don't think about, which is, you said it even earlier yourself, which is when you're getting paid, you're not getting paid just for that piece and material. You're getting paid for 17 years of hard work, labor, and intensive ingenuity. Mm-hmm. And that's something that if we don't keep supporting that, there's not going to happen. There isn't going to be ingenuity. No, if we don't keep pushing forward, you know, there's nothing, you know, these companies are just going to catch up, and then there will be no difference at all. And I think that's one of the ways that, you know, the United States and, like, a lot of grassroots blowers really thrive, is that they're artists. They're trying to be different than everyone else. And when everyone is trying to be different than everyone else, you get some really cool stuff. Yeah,
you get progress.
Huge progress. Yeah. Like 5 years ago, if you would have said the word recycler, the average pipe owner is going to be like, you mean, like, you know, reduce, reuse, like recycle, like, you know, exactly. Like out the curb? But exactly. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's what I think is fun too. Like you're saying with the innovation is this kind of cross culture of different glass industries that are coming together and really changing innovation to a point to where like when I had Micah Evans on, you know, he had said that once federal legalization happens, like what if GE steps in and they make like the baddest fucking smoking accessory ever made by man, because they're this huge corporation that has a shit ton of money and they have the technology to back them up with it to become innovative, because those companies like Apple and GE and the big companies, they're all innovative.
That's true, but there needs to be a market for it as well, and there needs to be I don't know if I'll ever see or ever have to use an eye toke. That's what I'm just trying to say.
Right? Shit, it'd be hilarious. Yeah, you never know, man. Apple's got the freaking Apple vaporizer going on.
That exactly, but and with innovation as well, like another part of it is like as an economist, like, and as a person with like an econ background, one of the big things that we always talk about in like every industry, be it food, clothing, or whatever, it's talk about the effects of local economies. And when you take money out of your pocket and you put it on a website to a Chinese company like Alibaba.com or I don't know what are the others, like honestly, if you go to Chinese glass wholesale, like there's tons of
there's Oriental Trading and it's good.
Yeah, you can give your money to them and that money ends up overseas. Mm-hmm. But if you're giving the money into a local glass blower, no matter who they are, even if a local store, that money is going back to glass blowers, going back into your community. It ends up in your local grocery stores. It ends up paying someone else. And it's not just for you. It doesn't make you more wealthy. It makes your entire community wealthier.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
And it may not be, and even if it's not your community, it's still at least a local United States community that you're sending it to. Yep. This money that you're spending is not getting put into, it's not getting put into a foreign trust overseas where no one's ever going to see the cash again. It actually keeps it mobile. And I think that from a consumer standpoint, that's so much better for you and everyone around you. I mean, let's think about it. Like Jason, when someone buys a piece from you, the money goes to more glass, more oxygen, and food on your table, into your grocery stores in your community. It goes for your trips for your family, clothes for your family. It helps out you as a person, as you as a local and American. Yeah. And I think that's something that as Americans we should do as well. We should support our own. We need to support at home before we can support elsewhere as well.
Yeah, I agree, and that's also why I preach really right now, especially the time of year, about paying our taxes. As much as we hate paying taxes, I mean, it fucking sucks, and it's a whole other topic of conversation, but it's important, because if you're making a certain amount of money, you got to pay a certain amount of taxes, but that taxes then goes back into our local governments and our fire stations and police officers and the infrastructure that's just broad in this country. And if we're not, with the way this industry is a multi-billion, eventually going to become a multi-trillion-dollar industry, that's going to be creating a shit ton of tax revenue, especially if cannabis becomes fairly legal. I mean, just that alone is going to get this country out of debt, hopefully, if it's done right, So we have a chance right now as the ground level floor of all of us, 50,000, whatever glass artists, to make a difference in this country and then potentially the world because of economic stimulus.
Honestly, like the culture and we haven't seen a glass period like this in the last 10, 15 years since the 1500s, since the island, the Venetian masters were going at it.
Yeah.
There hasn't been this much innovation. There hasn't been this much growth in an industry like this in 500 years, and that says something. It really does.
Yeah, and we didn't even have to use alien technology.
Exactly. We didn't even have to use alien technology, even though some of the pieces out there almost seem like they're made by aliens.
Yeah, no shit.
With every industry, I think there's a progression. And it's always going to be pushing higher. You're never going to see, I have a few glassblower buddies who are about like, one of them is convinced that he can bring back the grommet, that he can bring it back in like a heady, like cool way. And it's like, good on you, man. But I don't know. I don't think it is. I think we're moving forward. We're not moving backwards.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry.
No, continue. What were you saying?
I just recently, it's one of my shops I go to, did my demo at, it was LSD. They had some water pipes that had grommets in them. And I laughed my ass off. I was like, I was happy to see it because it's been like 10 years at least since I saw a grommet, or even much less used a grommet in a piece.
Exactly. Yeah. And, because glass on glass is here. Like, why go back when we have it?
Big time.
And so, there's growth. And I think that's the big thing, is that when you're supporting a local store that supports USA Glass, you're supporting, local artists, you're supporting local growth, you're supporting industry growth. And I think that's something that we need to think about. And like a big part of that is not just reaching consumers or customers, but I think it's reaching the stores as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Because at the end of the day, glass stores are either, it's about, they want to make money. And I've seen, I don't have to say I've seen, but I've definitely talked to store owners where they were like, yeah, 6 years ago, I had, this guy show up on my, from a local importer, and he had literally like a cardboard box just full of loose pipes, all clanging and clanging against each other. And he sold to me for $20. And he's like, I sold each of those pipes for $5 and made $800. So, and like when you're talking to these old guys, it's like, how do you convince a store to buy your pieces when they, that's their option? Like,
Yeah.
I can make $800 off of this stuff for free if I break one, and I could give one to you and it doesn't cost me anything. And that's a big, that's the whole money moves. And that's the thing, is it's up to the consumer to demand higher quality product in order to get it. Because if you go into a store and you buy a foreign piece, you're supporting it. It is okay to walk out of a store and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you carried better quality glass here. I'm going to take my business elsewhere.
Yep.
And I think if we all stand up and say that, where it's like, no, like, I'm sorry, like, this isn't quality, I don't want to buy this, like, that will make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the last 5 years, pretty much with social media where it's at, it's really helped to educate the customer and to get people excited about the American industry. Because I know nationally wise, 5 years ago, it was nothing at all in comparison to what it is now. Especially the support and the community that's grown from social media, but also because people are fucking excited about what is going on. They are hyped about it. It's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that this year alone, the first glass pieces, functional pieces, went for over $100,000 at auction that is a huge step in the right artistic direction.
Yeah, I agree.
It's respectful to the amount of time, the amount of years that went into it, the perfection that go into these pieces, and just the artistic creativity. I mean, shit, the fact that there's a piece of glass out there, like a functional smokable piece that has a glass moon that went to outer space in it, is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Right. Yeah.
And as these bigger pieces get pushed forward, and as these, higher end these higher end buyers appear, it allows artists to push farther. It allows them to push further. If people are willing to spend the money, we can spend the time to make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually just saw an Instagram page they were promoting their Facebook page, which was I think it was like it was glass for $100 or less, which is all American made glass, and they're promoting that.
I frequent it quite often, try to sell my work on there. I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's cool. It's a great concept, I think some of the stuff is being undersold, honestly, but it's still the fact that there is a page that's dedicated to helping people that can't afford to spend a shit ton of money on glass, that still want to be able to afford to buy a high-quality piece of glass.
I agree with you there, and I do agree with the underselling part. With that page, what I find is that a lot of artists find themselves competing for prices and whatnot, which ultimately lowers pricing, which ultimately lowers our standard and quality of work. But there's, you have to stand up and stand up for your prices, guys.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing is, if you make it and it's going to cost a certain amount, it better be worth it. Don't, I have a buddy up here who's a glassblower who he made $120 pinchy the other day. He spent 3-4 hours working on this single pinchy, and it's beautiful. The techniques that went into it are amazing. And if glass, it's like the headiest little tiny piece of work you've ever held. But I don't know if he's ever going to find a buyer for it, because the amount of people out there that are ready to buy $120 pinchy are, they're not out there. It's hard to find.
Yeah. I think it's the difference of the culture of the flower culture and the concentrate culture. It's I think the concentrate culture is the culture that's spending the money on the rigs that's in that environment, because to me it's a little bit higher end stuff.
We've been calling it heady culture, heady kids.
Yeah, and then you have the flower culture, which is like the old school hippies like myself. I still prefer my flowers, but I also like the other, So it's I prefer a fine wine over a cheap wine sometimes, but sometimes I gotta buy a cheap wine because it's what I can afford.
I don't know. I haven't even looked at that. I like it. Sometimes I like drinking vodka and getting fucked up on high-end shelf booze. And other times, I like to sit back and drink a decent beer.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Both have the same quality, same end game, but people drinking Ciroc are very different than the dude drinking, a Bud Light down the street.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, man.
So I suppose that you're right in that assessment that with higher quality and more expensive inputs, like the concentrates and whatnot, which do cost more generally, you're going to find people who have the money who are already able to buy more expensive pieces.
Yeah, because smoking a gram of concentrates is way more expensive than smoking a gram of flowers.
That's true. Honestly, it's hard to say. Some of the stuff these days is about the same.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I guess it depends where you live too.
That's true. For everyone out there who isn't in Colorado, Oregon, or any of those other legal states out there, we know you're out there. The struggle's real. We get it.
Exactly. Hell yeah, man. So in conclusion, I think what it comes down to is just support your local glass artists, become knowledgeable about what you're purchasing, and when you buy your glass, inspect the shit out of it. I mean, even before you buy it, inspect it. Look at the bowls. Look at inside. Ask where it came from. Like, really find out. It's no different than going to a produce stand and being conscious about whether your food is GMO free or not. I know a lot of you out here listening to this show are worried about what goes in your body. Be worried where your glass comes from.
Absolutely. And, you can feel better at night knowing that you're supporting local economies, that you're smoking out of a tested and loved product that someone has taken the time to create, specifically, most likely for you, if you're buying it from the artist. And if not from them, if from a store or whatnot, at least it's been tested, it's been checked for cracks, it's been assessed correctly. Absolutely.
Yeah, good shit, man.
Yeah, you can sleep well at night knowing that you're doing a good thing for about the same price.
Yep, absolutely. Hell yeah.
But
yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say the main thing about it though is I think you spoke truth right there, which is educate yourselves. There's a lot of information about what needs to happen in glass. If for those out there who are trying to learn more for free, Instagram Glass Knowledge, we have tons of info. Literally, you can spend probably, I don't know, like we're up to 70 posts, I think, or 50 posts or something like that of just different educational material. That 80 educational posts for you. You can learn all about the different techniques. You can ask questions and even hit us up. We're totally down to talk to anyone, but we want you to know more so that you can buy better.
Exactly. So if you guys want to contact us, you can contact Shane. Get a hold of him on Glass Knowledge, either through a DM or on his posts. You can also get a hold of me at info@wiseguyradio.com. That's info@wyzguiradio.com. And we will have links to the Glass Knowledge page as well on our new website on Glass or on wiseguymedia.com that we're almost done getting ready to put out there. So awesome, man. Well, again, Shane, thank you so much for coming on. It's been way too long.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you for having me, Jason. I always love being on the show. I'm glad to see it's growing, and I love the fact that the following is getting bigger and bigger. Like, the more people listen, the better.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. It's been a lot of fun. So you guys have a beautiful night. Enjoy this segment of Glass Knowledge, and we will see you on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Take it easy.
Peace.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.